Okay, so we've done the top 10 countries where viewers are viewing from for the channel. We've done the top 10 US states that viewers are viewing from in the US. We've done the top 10 towns and cities globally where viewers are viewing from. Now we're looking at the top 10 European countries viewers are from, excluding the UK. So the majority of my content is basically, I wouldn't say aimed at the UK audience, but is the sports teams that I look at, the sports leagues that I look at. The majority of viewers I would expect to be from the UK. But what I find very, very interesting is I've got viewership from all around the world. And some of the countries on the top 10 list were quite surprising. And some of the countries that didn't make the top 10 list were quite surprising. Now, the European top 10 list, there's a definite geographical trend for Northern and Western Europe. Very noticeable. Now, what is very interesting about that is that's where the big 5 European leagues are when it comes to football. The biggest clubs, for example, are based in these countries. But what is also very interesting is how the top 3 are so far ahead when it comes to mainland, continental Europe and Ireland over the rest. Huge gap between the top 3 in percentage of viewers of the whole channel and the rest. But let's have a look. So in 10th place is Belgium. Belgium comes in at 10th. 0.1% of overall channel views come from Belgium. Now, I'm not surprised Belgium has made the top 10. Their international football team have been reasonably successful, one of the top 4 or 5 consistently in the world rankings. They reached the latter stages of the 2018 World Cup, semi-finalists. This last World Cup, they really did struggle, very disappointing, and I think that created a lot of eyebrow raising. But Belgium being at number 10 does not surprise me. Because some of their high-profile athletes, especially their football players, play for some of the biggest clubs in Europe. The number 9 was surprising, and that's Russia. Russia coming in at number 9. Now, the 2018 Football World Cup was 5 years ago. And obviously with what's going on with the war in Ukraine and Russian teams and athletes being barred from competition, I think that has created some interest and some discussion. But the fact that Russia makes the top 10 is a little bit of a surprise. Again, they have 0.1% of overall channel views. Spain comes in at number 8. Not really overly surprised with Spain. I've been doing some more Spanish footballing-based content, and some of their big clubs make the latter stages of European competition. And of course, I will watch all 3 of the major European Cup competitions, the finals, the Conference League, Europa League, the Champions League, and the Spanish clubs have a very, very good record in Europe. Their national side have been a bit up and down since they last won the World Cup and the Euros in the early 2010s. They've had some poor tournaments, they've had some average tournaments, they've had some decent tournaments, and their form in international tournaments has been a bit up and down. But lately, I have been doing a lot of football club histories, and I have been focusing on Spanish clubs in the last few days, which I don't think has boosted the figures as much yet, although with the Spanish national side and some of their best players and their biggest clubs in Europe, for example, that will create some interest. When a player's linked with a Spanish club, when a Spanish player signs for another club, that kind of thing. So there's some kind of interest there, and yes, I am currently doing a series of football club histories on Spanish clubs, and that will again generate some interest. But 8th, I'm a little bit surprised Spain is that low. There's a big Irish and British expat community in Spain, so there's a lot of English speakers. So I'm a little bit surprised that Spain is further down the list. Portugal doesn't make the top 10. That's another shock as well. 7th place is the Netherlands. Now they have 0.2% of overall channel views. That is very, very interesting. I've not really covered Dutch football players, like player profiles, or any Dutch clubs and club histories to this point. Yes, I've covered the international football team, both men and women's Euros and World Cups, and how their women's teams do. And I've done a fair few match reviews on the Dutch national side when they're playing at major international tournaments. But I am surprised the Dutch come in at 7th. Haven't done a lot of videos on Dutch sports teams. So that's a very interesting one. 6th place, Italy. 0.2%, same as the Netherlands. Italy, I'm not surprised by. Obviously, their rugby union side with the Six Nations. I've watched a lot of Italian rugby union matches. Obviously, their football side, some of the big club sides, the Champions League, Europa Conference League. So I'm not surprised with Italy being in the top 10. Italy being in 6th, I think, is about right. They are a sports-mad country. It is more than just football with the Italians. They love their motorsport. They love their cycling. They love their winter sports. So Italy being around mid-table in the European nations top 10 doesn't surprise me. Sweden, again, not surprised with the amount of NHL content that I've done. They also come in with 0.2%. And again, the Swedish men's national side when it comes to football and the women's, generally pretty decent. On the women's side of things, very successful. They normally make the latter stages of tournaments, especially on the women's side of things. Got the Women's World Cup coming up in a couple of months in Australia and New Zealand. I am surprised that Sweden is above Italy and the Netherlands, for example, and Spain, but I'm not surprised Sweden makes the top 5. France in 4th place with 0.3% of overall views. Not surprised by France being in the top 10. They've got a lot of major sporting events coming up. They've got the Rugby League World Cup in 2025, they've got the Rugby Union World Cup this year, and they've got the Olympics next year. And there's been a lot of videos that I've made in regards to the French football team, national, both men's and women's, and the rugby team, both men and women's as well. So I'm not surprised with the French being where they are. I've done videos on PSG and players who play for PSG, and I will get to some more club histories of French clubs in the summer. That'll be very, very interesting. The French league is more competitive than people realise. Of course, we've got the Catalan Dragons as well, who play in the Super League. They've won the Challenge Cup final a few years ago. So I'm not surprised that the French are in the top 4, let alone the top 10. But I am surprised the gap between the French and the top 3. So in 3rd place is Finland with 1.1%. Very, very surprised that Finland is above Sweden, for example, when it comes to the Scandinavian countries. Denmark, for example, and Norway don't make the top 10. That is surprising. But Finland, apart from the NHL content, I am surprised the Finns come in at 3rd. But they've been pretty strong in that position when it comes to the European countries and the overall countries as well. They made the top 10. So that's very, very interesting that Finland's that high. Just above them is Germany with 1.1%. Now, these two countries are well clear of France. Germany comes in at 2nd with 1.1% of total channel views. Not surprised by the Germans being where they are with the success of their men's national side, the 2014 World Cup, just before I started making channel content. Then we've had the build-up to the 2018 World Cup, then the failures at the 2018 World Cup, the 2020 Euros that was delayed, the failures there by the German national side, and their struggles in this last World Cup. Done a lot of club histories on German clubs. A lot of high-profile players have, played in Germany or been transferred from Germany to other European clubs. So, and the German women's team do very, very well as well on the women's side of football. So I'm not surprised Germany's doing quite well in the top 10 of European countries. But it's a shock. The surprise is Ireland is the top European country that people are viewing from. Now, Irish fans are more than just, the Gaelic Athletic Association or Rugby Union. They're massive football fans. They support a lot of clubs in England and Scotland and across Europe. They're very, very educated sporting fan base. Then you've got the boxing and the MMA, like Conor McGregor, for example. So Ireland is the most popular European location viewers are viewing from. So there we go. There's the top 10 countries from Europe where viewers are from. It's very interesting. There are some notable countries that don't make the list, like Portugal, like Norway, like Denmark, Poland. Some very, very, countries with big populations, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, for example, a lot of countries in the Balkans, Greece, where you would think, hang on a second, why are these countries not, punching into the top 10? The only country from Eastern Europe that made the top 10 is Russia, and we could debate the pros and cons about that with their, sporting bans because of the war in Ukraine. Their hosting of the 2018 World Cup, I think, might still have had a bit of a bump with the figures, and that was 5 years ago. So people are still watching content that I made 4 or 5 years ago in relation to the Women's World Cup and the Men's World Cup in 2018 and 2019. People are still watching that content, which is very, very interesting. But there we go. So there's our top 10 European countries viewers are from. Some interesting ones. What countries are you surprised by not being on the list? And what countries are you surprised by being on the list and their position that they're in? Anyway, thank you very much from me for watching. Place your thoughts below in the comment section. Please tell me what country you are viewing from. It'd be very interesting to get an idea of the audience that I have, because I know it's more than just English-speaking people as a first language. I know I have a lot of European viewers where English isn't their first language. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more content for you very, very soon.